Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us. I should let you know we also have a TV audience in this case. Don't mind the cameras; they'll find you. This is an extraordinary opportunity that one really only gets at Davos, where we have 4 heads of government from literally 4 different continents, 4 corners of the world, and yet they are all grappling with the same crisis, the same problem. And what we're going to try to do is to have a conversation about their perspectives on it and the road ahead. I'm not going to spend a great deal of time introducing them because they are extraordinarily well known. President Calderón is, of course, the President of Mexico, Prime Minister Brown of Great Britain, Prime Minister Han of South Korea, and President Motlande is the President of South Africa. Mexico went through its own pretty wrenching crisis in the early 1990s. What lessons should we learn from that? What would you recommend? You know, the United States is currently trying to decide on this good bank, bad bank issue, to have an aggregator bank, or whether outright nationalization is the right answer. What does Mexico's history tell us?
Well, first, you are right. We, in Latin American countries, suffered in the past several crises. Andrés Velasco, Minister of Chile, was saying last night that we suffered like over 30 crises in 25 years. So we are experts in financial crisis.
Help us, for goodness sake.
We can do something. For instance, one is, we have lessons. We learn from that. One is absolutely important with a sense of urgency to save or to clean the banking system. We did already 10 years ago in Mexico. It cost like, 15 or 20 points of GDP. But today, our banking system is really sound. The rate of capitalization, capital versus assets in Mexican banking system is over 14%. So it's a really sound system. The second is, Prime Minister is right. You need to do something quickly with bad assets in the bank. Probably the recommendation is doing so. It's important to establish right incentives in order to recover in time, in some years, the real value of those assets. Because if you don't put those incentives, you can lose the value totally. And third is you need to, Prime Minister was talking about risk. You need to allocate risk carefully among the stockholders, among the bankers, creditors, of course the government. But again, it's a question of incentives, economic incentives. Another, we need to put in place counter-cyclical policies, fiscal and monetary policies. 10 years ago, we were not able to do so because we were not prepared for that. But today, we have also sound public finances. For instance, our foreign reserves, almost $90 billion, are like 3 times our foreign debt. We covered already all the payments for foreign debt for this year. We went to the market in December and we borrowed $1 billion in the market. So, today we are in the different position and we are able to put in place or to implement counter-cyclical policies.
And what you mean by that is public spending.
Yes.
President Calderón, what do you want to see the G20 do? What specifically at this point, what kind of international coordination is the key to get countries out of this economic crisis?
Well, there are a set of technical instructions, if I can say that, to weigh out this crisis. But the problem is, as the Prime Minister was saying, there is a lack of confidence, a lack of trust. So a really strong leadership is required. So the first thing is leadership.
Who should that come from? President Obama?
Of course, Prime Minister Brown, but also President Obama. And that's a very important difference. Now, the problem started in U.S., is the epicenter, and the problem coincides with the lack of leadership in that nation. whatever the reasons were, now there is strong leadership in the United States. And the people need leadership in every single country, and especially in the American society. So this meeting in London will be the opportunity to build and put together leadership among the nations. Second, coordination. I absolutely agree. Counter-cyclical policies, fiscal and monetary policies are crucial, but it's not enough if those policies are not coordinated. Because the effort of one country will be in favor of the neighbor, but we can lose a lot of energy on that. If we have a common crisis in all the world, different from 98, we need the effort of the government together. So the second is coordination. The third, decisions. For instance, we need to recapitalize not only banking system, but also multilateral institutions.
Like the IMF and the World Bank.
Absolutely. World Bank, IMF, interdeveloped banking in Latin America, and so on. Why? We need to redesign them in order to provide more voice to another emerging economies, but also we need to recapitalize them because the inflow of foreign investment to emerging economies, for instance in Latin America, and the foreign credit went down quickly. So the only way to substitute those flows is through multilateral institutions. So we can take in this meeting leadership, which is the most important thing for me. Second, coordination. And third, decisions about several institutions.
Let's talk about that last danger you mentioned, Prime Minister. President Calderón, when one hears all this impressive array of activity, all these governments around the world are going to spend enormous amounts of money, fiscal stimulus. They've all read their John Maynard Keynes. They know what to do. And yet if you look at these fiscal stimuli, if you look at these various programs, it's a lot of subsidies to industries. It's a lot of what one would have called protectionism. Is the movement towards free trade imperiled by this massive outlay of government support for various national industries?
One of the things that we can do in London is to reject with facts and decision protectionism, because that could be the most dangerous threat to the new situation. We need to learn from the crisis in the 20s and 30s. Protectionism delayed the way out of the crisis, and we can learn from the 98 crisis. Open economies went out quickly from this situation. So we need to be careful about that. In Mexico, for instance, we are reducing even more our ties to the house. Last month, we took that decision, and the idea is to open the market. The idea is to give an opportunity to the market to recover the real economy. And that was my message to the American president in our meeting in January. We need to provide or give an opportunity to the market. We need to integrate in a more competitive way our market. So we need to reject protectionism.
You said this to President Obama?
Yes.
What did he say?
He was agreed that the benefits of trade in terms of job creation, in terms of investment, in terms of upgrading the competitiveness of the region has been and will be very useful for both Mexico and the United States. And we need to work together in order to take care about the protectionism threatness in this particular moment.
How does it look to you, Prime Minister Han? Are you seeing the problems of rising protectionism? President Obama, during the campaign, actually singled out South Korea as a place where American cars couldn't get sold, and that was one of the reasons why he was opposed to the South Korean Free Trade Agreement. You hope that this is going to work out all right?
I think we have to learn a lot from the experience of the 1930s. At the time, nations wanted to protect their own industry, but through so-called Neighbor policy, but that proved very self-defeating. No nations benefited from it. On the contrary, there was contraction of world trade and growth. Now, I think we have to promote trade and investment at this juncture. Otherwise, we will suffer. All of us will suffer. As regards the Korea-US free trade, in the absence of multilateral trade negotiations being successful, the second best is to go for bilateral trade agreement. In that spirit, we have had several successful bilateral trade agreements with other countries, and we have now concluded trade agreements with the United States. It will benefit both countries, and hopefully that during the early part of the Obama administration, we would like to see these trade agreements pass through the House of Representatives as well as Senate.
And signed by the President. You hope to convince him that you are right on this?
Well, I think, of course, President Obama has many priorities at the moment. We fully understand his problems at the moment, but we hope that these free trade agreement to the United States will be also beneficial. This is the largest, I think, beneficial free trade after NAFTA. So we will do our part in passing this trade agreement, but hope that the U.S. will take similar measures through the Congress so that both countries will benefit from this trade. Because according to the estimate that we made, as well as some of the U.S. research institutes made, both countries will benefit greatly in terms of trade expansion as well as growth.
Thank you very much. I'm Adam Mutambara from Zimbabwe. There has to be a paradigm shift in the way we understand concepts that are based on the nation state.
What is your question?
Mr. President.
Okay. I'm waiting for the question mark.
You must be patient. This is Davos. This is Davos. There has to be a paradigm shift in the way we understand concepts rooted on the nation state, national sovereignty, national competitiveness. How are we going to change the way we understand national sovereignty as we move towards global sovereignty? How are we going to change our understanding of country competitiveness as we craft global solutions? Lastly, globalization, the globe, universality, universal. Let's make sure our definition of global includes everyone. Our definition of universal includes everyone. Africans, for example, would want to be part of the crafting and defining of global solutions to the current crisis. To what extent are we incorporating African thinking and African responses to the global crisis? How global is our understanding of globalization?
Good question, President Motolande. You are now in the G20. Do you feel you are at the table? Your views are being heard? Do you want more? What would you like?
Well, certainly our views and our voices being heard, but of course we need also to ensure that these multilateral institutions become representative. At the moment, many developing countries feel that they do not have a voice at all, and that their views are never taken on board. But of course, we must not be too idealistic about the need for a coordinated global management of society's challenges, because we've got to patiently put in place the building blocks, ensure that we build and consolidate democracies across the globe that subscribe to principles of transparency and accountability. That in itself must be manifest in the international bodies that or structures that we establish, because there's no way we can have accountability and transparency in the international structures when we do not practice same in our own countries. Therefore, the two are not mutually exclusive. The progress that is being made in each country will contribute positively towards a better managed global order.
When people talk about global cooperation, it all sounds nice. What does it mean? What would the average person understand it to mean? What would change if we were to suddenly see a lot of global cooperation?
Well, the point is, we need that in order to fix the situation. And not only the economic or banking situation, because at the end, all the economy usually is working on cycles. There is no boom forever, and there is no crisis forever. But world cooperation means, first the recapitalization and redesign of multilateral institutions that requires money and capital coming from everybody. Second, the principles and values that we are defending. And Mr. Brown talked a little bit about environmental issues, talk about social development. And in order to move ahead these challenges, we need to work together in order to fight extreme poverty in Africa or Latin America, in order to preserve or tackling climate change. We need world cooperation, global cooperation. And that means resources, that means leadership, and that means coordination. And we need that.
You see the United States as having been lacking in this area?
I think I don't want to make judgment about the past, but now is the opportunity for the new government in the United States. And the question about are public servants or private sector ready to face this situation? I think that it requires a lot of courage, a lot of character, if I can say that, leadership. We are not able to choose what kind of conditions will prevail to run an office or to be a president of a nation like Mexico. But we need to think every day what are the principles and values at stake. And I think for businessmen, it's exactly the same question. And the question is, are we going to face difficult moments or not? That is not the question. We are going to face any kind of moment. The question is, do you have enough courage to face the challenge or not? And that's a very requesting ask for public and private sectors. And I think in this particular moment, the new president of the United States has the opportunity to show his leadership to the nation and to the world. And in each nation, and let me say in each enterprise, we need to show the same courage. Stop blaming each other or stop to think how bad we are in this Davos meeting. Start thinking what we need to do in order to move on, in order to overcome this crisis. And starting that, we will overcome the crisis.
Or as the president says, yes, we can.
Yes. 2008 will be remembered as the year that there was a huge financial crisis, which was as big as anything that has been seen in the world. But let 2009 be remembered as the year where the world came together to deal with the problem. And people look back in the 1930s now, and with limited exceptions, people say that was a decade where people failed to rise to the challenge. In this decade, we have got to rise to the challenge. We've got to rise to the challenge of international cooperation. Look back on the 20s and 30s. Keynes went into the government of the day with plans to fiscal and monetary stimulus for the economy. The Treasury Secretary in Britain wrote on it only 3 words to his plans: inflation, extravagance, and bankruptcy, and rejected it out of hand. Churchill then said, "We were resolved to be irresolute, adamant for drift, solid for fluidity, all-powerful for impotence." Now, that's how that decade is remembered. We actually have got this huge advantage that we can cooperate with each other. Every continent can actually work together. We understand the problems that are faced by each continent. There is not a lack of knowledge, a lack of communication, a lack of willingness to work together. Now, that is what this year we have got to do. And as I say, there are other big issues in the international community where if we cannot cooperate on dealing with a financial crisis, we'll not be able to cooperate on dealing with the Copenhagen challenge of climate change or any other challenges we face. So let us be absolutely clear, there is an international solution to this. countries can work together to restore confidence in what has been a failure in the banking system, and we can inject resources into the economy to increase demand so that what we are seeing at the moment is thousands of people in every country of the world losing their jobs, thousands in fear of losing their homes, thousands of businesses going under. We can, yes, your slogan, yes we can do something about it, and we ought to be working together.
Good. Well done.